One of the things that makes innovation a crapshoot is that they took first-year marketing at the Harvard Business School or comparable places, and they were learned principles of marketing and segmentation that turn out to be wrong. So as a result, though, of the work that we teach, most companies will segment the market by product category or customer category. So the way the automobile behaves as if their market is structured is by product category. You've got subcompacts, compacts, mid-size, full-size, SUVs, minivans, sport cars, luxury cars, and so on. And when the reason why that framing of the structure of the market is critical is whenever they develop a new product, they slot it into one of these categories, and they believe that they win if they just have more features than everybody else. There are a lot of others that behave as if their market is structured by customer category. So you have 45 to 55-year-old women with and without college degrees. Or you've got low-income, middle-income, high-income households, or small, medium, large businesses, or industry verticals. And a lot of people believe that their market is structured that way. And so when they develop a new market, they have to slot it into a customer and they try to make a product that attracts the average customer in that segment. And if you're in the company looking out on the market, indeed that's the way the world appears. The problem is, if you're the customer, that's not the world feels like at all. If you're the customer, you know, stuff just happens to you every day. Jobs arise in our life that they got to get done, and they hire products or services to get these jobs done. And it turns out that understanding the job, not understanding the customer, is what's critical in making innovation much more predictable. So once we understood what job the customer was trying to do, it became very clear how to improve the job so that it could do it better against the real competition. Importantly, the size of the market typically is unrelated or only partially correlated with the size of a product. And therefore, in innovation, we can just get very deceived by thinking a product that the market is small or large, because you don't know unless you crawl in the customer's perspective and figure out who we really compete against. A long time ago, Peter Drucker said this better than I could when he said that the customer rarely buys what the customer thinks it's selling him. How could we more predictably develop new product opportunities that have a low probability of failure? And the way I'd like to describe it is, at the beginning is this fundamental question: what's the basic job the customer's trying to get done? What's the result that the customer needs to accomplish? And every job has a functional, emotional, and a social dimension to the job. Then what experiences do we need to provide in purchase and use so that those experiences will sum up to nailing the job perfectly? Then how do we need to integrate, and what do we need to integrate so that we provide the experiences required to get the job done perfectly? And on top of that, we then give it a brand that pops in customers' mind when they realize that they have this job to be done, a purpose that leads them to the product that you've organized. So how does it relate to some things in the medical world? You know, there has been a lot of money spent on medical records. And the Washington, the White House folks have a sense that we just need to make it cheaper for primary care doctors to use electronic medical systems, even while the guys, the primary care doctors, continue to keep it on little cards in their pocket. And my guess is that if we made it free and we actually put it all in and installed it for them, they still would not be used. The data would just fit on a disk drive instead of in cabinets. And the only reason why, or the only mechanism by which you would put it into use is that doctors will pull them when people develop applications that are developed that help doctors get the jobs done that they're trying to get done in their lives. Let me just talk a little bit about the business model. We have a case in my course about a company in Michigan called Michigan Manufacturing Corporation, sorry. And they have 9 plants, and they make axles for cars and trucks. One of the plants in Pontiac, Michigan, the corporate folks decided to shut it down because it was by far the most high cost of all of the 9 plants in their system. And the CEO, or the plant manager, was my cousin, so I knew it quite well. And he knew, or she knew, that her costs were high. But when he went into the plant, she couldn't see costs anywhere. They really thought they were squeezed down, and yet the data showed that. And when you walked in their factory, this is what it looked like. So it was organized with the type of machines all in the same place. And the reason for organizing the plant in this way was threefold. The first is the equipment was very expensive, so that you utilized it more effectively. Second, the workers were very expensive, and so they could have expertise in each type of equipment and utilize them most effectively. But the most important dimension is that this plant had a value proposition to their customers, which is, you guys, whatever product you need to have be made, we can do it for you. Bring your design here, and we can make anything for any customer. And because of this facility, they could just route it through any sequence of these operations to make anything for anybody. And so one might through here and run through this sequence of operations, but another product that is just a different design would start in a very different place. And at the end, they would all put out off that way. And that was just the way they were organized because of the value proposition, we will do anything for anybody. So he was interested that at the other end of the spectrum in Michigan manufacturing was a plant in Maysville, Ohio. In Pontiac, for every dollar of direct cost that is spent in making the product, they had $6.2 of overhead cost. Just managing all of this complexity of every product taking a different path through the plant. And in Maysville, Ohio, it was only $2.2 of overhead cost for a direct dollar of dollar direct cost. So we went down and found that there was a very different process. And what he realized is that about 15 years ago, what the corporation had done is they took the 2 highest pathways that products were taking through the Pontiac plant and took that sequence of operations, almost like a snake, out of Michigan and put them down in Maysville, Ohio, and straightened out in a straight line. And then the second highest volume route, They took that down and straightened it out as in Maysville, Ohio. And they, in that plant, made a very different value proposition. And that was, in this plant, we don't do anything for anybody. But if you have a design that can be made by following through this sequence of processes, we will do it at very high quality and very low cost. And so Noel Allen went back realizing, gosh, we have two fundamentally different value propositions. And we then tried to figure out where all of the rest of the plants were on this spectrum. And what we found is that in Pontiac, there were, although they could make anything for anybody in practice, there were products making one of 24 different pathways through that factory. In Maysville, Ohio, there were just 2 pathways through the factory. And whenever you doubled the number of pathways that products were taking through the factory, it increased overheads by 30% for every doubling when you went from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. And that's why this one was so expensive, is because they had 24 different pathways. Anyway, I wanted to ask you a question. If I took away the names of the equipment from there, and I asked you, is this diagram an axle factory or a hospital, what would you say? You can't tell. It's exactly the same concept for exactly the same reason, isn't it? And that is a typical hospital. Their value proposition is, hey, you guys, I actually don't care bring it here. We will solve any problem for anybody. And so they have to organize it in this way. Now, I'll get into that a little bit later, but it turns out that it's even worse than that, because to be able to do anything for anybody, we have in our hospitals 3 fundamentally different and incompatible business models at work. And these are the only types of business models in the world. There are 3 types. One of them we call value solution shops. And a solution shop is a business whose job is to define the problems and recommend solutions. It turns out that the activities and the intuitive activities in hospitals that are trying to figure out what's wrong with you is a solution type activity. The second type of business model we call a value-adding process business, where basically you bring stuff in that is not complete or is broken, and you fix it or add value to it and ship it out the other side. And so most manufacturing is a value-adding process business, but most education is also. So at the Harvard Business School, every fall, we bring in 900 very incomplete people. And step by step, we perfect them and send them to Wall Street 2 years later. Procedures that are done after a clear diagnosis have been made act a lot like value-adding process businesses. So the third type is a facilitated network, or telecommunications is a business like that. I give you data, you give me data. Insurance, I put our premiums into the pool, you take our claims out of the pool. Generally, a solution shop business makes its money in a fee-for-service basis. Value-adding process businesses get their fees on a fee-for-outcome basis, and these guys make their fee on a fee-for-membership basis. And in a typical hospital, we have all 3 types of business. A typical hospital has 110 different pathways that patients might apply through the hospital. And as a result, for every dollar that is spent actually caring for the patient, there are $8.5 of overhead costs that are just exist because of the complexity of people walking through. And when a hospital has separated out value-adding process activities, those overhead costs just fall away. So that's kind of the next thing that we think has to be done. Is it's not just going through to simplify the problem from that enable different caregivers to provide better care, but they then have to be embedded in new business models that can separate them out to each one to do the job that needs to be done.